Alright, so you want to start building pedals and come up with something like this. I've already made a video, you can watch it, about the essential and common tools you need. And now we're gonna get into the components. But if you buy a kit, those all should already be included. But then if you do the DIY route and you either get yourself just a board or then Vero board, you're gonna need to get your own components. So we're gonna start going through all that, not in any particular order, but we're just gonna look at the basics of what you need. And let's start with the components that go onto your board. And well, for that, we have these electrolytic capacitors. So I recommend getting the values if you're doing your first build. Well, go through the parts list of your build, especially if you got yourself a PCB. You can usually check on the website where you bought it from what components you need, and then just get those. But of course, if you're gonna be building a lot, just stock up on different values, and I keep mine in mini grip bags like these. And yeah, these are the polarized ones. Then we got the non-polarized capacitors, and we got different kinds. So, and you can see the value of all of these is the same, but the price and the size change. So these ones are the cheapest, and then we go here, and that's much more expensive than the green one, which we call greenies. And these are all 470, and you're gonna need a variety of these as well, so they're really inexpensive. Just stock up. I'll have a link on the video where I buy my stuff at usually, so you can check that shop. And then resistors, metal film, and yeah, just lots of different values of these. You can sometimes get packs. They might be good value, but generally I don't recommend getting components, especially the outboard components from eBay or Amazon, because the quality just isn't there. So you'll end up with lots of problems you can avoid by getting quality parts. All right, then we got our transistors. So again, just check the common ones and the ones you need for your builds and get those ones. I got a huge, well, not a huge, but I got a box of the common ones and then the not so common ones. And then you're gonna need different chips, op amps, all that stuff. And yeah, I got a little box of those as well. And for these parts, you usually want to socket them, because if you do a mistake, it's gonna be a pain in the ass to try and solder something like this off. So the sockets for transistors and these chips are very handy. Like you see, you can just pop it into the socket, and then if you need to switch it, you can just get it out of there like that. And these, you just do that and you get the socket that you can then solder onto your board like that. All right, so that's for those transistors, chips. And then you might sometimes need LEDs on your board, but you want to, of course, know when your pedal is on or off. So LEDs, different sizes, 5mm and 3mm are the ones I use. And then you want to have the socket for them. So you probably want those also. Alright, and just to show you, this is a finished Vero board, and that's a finished board I've done myself. Then it depends on what kind of board. If you use one like this, you might need pots that then go onto the board like that. So yeah, you gotta choose accordingly. And then if you're doing a Vero board build, you're probably gonna use a pot that has the solder locks. And if your pot doesn't come with the cover, you do need a cover. I think it's advisable. There you go, and you just put it on. So you need to get those separately. Then hookup wire 24 AVG, and yeah, this is solid one. You can get the stranded one. I like to use the solid one when I'm doing builds like this. It's just a bit easier. Enclosure, well, yeah, that's where everything goes to, so you'll need that. But then we got switches. So the foot switch, this one actually has the LED included here, and it has this cool little ring that lights up, but you can get the basic ones. Then you might need all sorts of on off 3-row, 1-row switches like this. And then the jacks and the power jack. So those are what you need. And here's where the quality matters, I can tell you. So your biggest mistake is getting cheap ass jacks that cause all kinds of issues. So don't save on those. All right. And then you want to have some cool knobs. These comes in various different sizes, colors, and so on. And you can either have the ones that have this little screw over there, so then you tighten them up, and then you're probably gonna have a pot that has this kind of shaft instead of the one where you just push the knob in. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, and then I almost forgot diodes. So especially fuses, overdrives, distortion, you usually have these. And there's various different ones, and they can affect the sound quite a lot. And sometimes, or usually, you can also use LEDs instead of diodes if they're for the clipping. And yeah, these are, again, there's minus and plus, so they are polarized. That's something to keep in mind. And I have lots of different ones. Then some circuits might want little trimpots. So it's basically the same thing, but in a much smaller footprint. And then you usually just put it on the board like that, and then you tune it up, leave it there, and you're not gonna be touching that, so it stays inside the enclosure. I think that pretty much covers the basics, the components you want to really stack up on if you start doing builds, of course, and are thinking about doing more, is all this stuff, the Vero board, LEDs, different pots, those foot switches, and an enclosure. And then you just keep adding to your collection the chips you want. Depends on what build you're doing. So you probably will, if you get into this, end up with something like this. So there we go. And yeah, then I gotta promote my coffee shop, so I can't ship to the US right now because of the international blah blah blah. But I do have these little utility boards on there, and this is to make the power jack much more usable, so it brings you more contact points. I've been using those in my builds. And then I got small, really handy boards for foot switch connections, and these are designed for the 24 AVG wire, as we can see, and they come with a resistor already on them for your LED. You can find them there. And that's it. That's what you need. And if you didn't check the video about the tools you need, check that out. And then I have a whole series of videos about where to order components and how to build your very first fuzz pedal on Vero board. So check that out if you're beginning, and if there's anything on your mind you want to ask or so on, just let me know. All right, have fun. I'm off.